my channel. So in today's video what I'm going to talk about is the Siege of Winterfell and more precisely the commanders you can use in there, and I'm going to try and help you with selecting your commanders to get most out of your deployments inside the event. So yesterday we had a big update which brought us a lot of new commanders to the event, and also all the existing ones were modified in the process. So all the other commanders are available now in Siege of Winterfell except for Darius. So what I did was that I created this kind of a cheat sheet where you can see the information about all the commanders. Here on the left side you can see the commander name, then there are the statistics of those commanders, rage cost of their active skill, kind of a summary on their active skill, and then some of my personal notes, how I feel about that specific commander. So basically, if you want to come back to this, you can just pause the video and you can see all the stats and notes all in the same section. But what I really want to talk about is the commander setups. So first off, let's going to start with healers. So here are all the new healing commanders you can select in Siege of Winterfell. And basically what in Siege of Winterfell the healing is actually pretty significant, because whenever you are fighting with your deployments you are getting wounded and seriously wounded troops, and wounded troops you are able to heal with commanders that can heal inside the event. Of course, if you heal your troops, then the longer time you can stay in the battle. So out of the new healers, the best healer is without any doubt is Marjorie. Marjorie, when gold, is giving you 120 total attack, 120 total health, but on top of that it heals for 1800 healing coefficient and increases skill damage dealt by 80%, which kind of makes it a really strong pick. Another good healing commander would be Annie, since it heals for 800 and increases normal damage by 70%. So those two are healers that also grant buffs. The absolute best healer still probably is Simon, because Simon is now the only commander that grants area of effect healing for healing coefficient 1800, and it also removes all debuffs except for bleed. And I think Simon is one of those commanders that every single player should have on battlefield with them. When it comes to the other available commanders, Seg basically heals, but it really is not great. Sabrina is basically the same as Dana, but is weaker. So Sabrina is not granting any stats at all, has relatively high rage cost, and the heal is kind of low, so I wouldn't use that. And also Kevin heals only for 600, and another effect is to increase defense by 400%. So basically those three are the commanders that I would not use. Some of the situational ones are the three over here. So Salma, Rhea and Patelo. They all grant nice stats. They are carried over two types. So basically you would select this based on the troop types your deployment is using. The heal is okay, 660 for 5 seconds, and increase two types defense by 300%. So basically that's how you can see what healing commanders you can and would like to use. So that's about healers. Okay, so what I want to mention first is that we have now 4 different types of damage you can deal in the Siege of Winterfell event. We have skill damage that is caused by your commander's active skills, and the skill damage can be buffed with certain commanders. Then we have normal and counter attack damage. So normal damage is the damage your troops deal when they are deployed in fight, and counter attack damage, as far as I know, is the damage when your deployment is being attacked by enemy deployment and it automatically attacks back at the enemy. So that is the counter damage. And lastly, we have bleed damage, which there are 2 commanders that cause bleed damage. There is Daenerys and Robert. And it seems that bleed damage cannot be removed or countered in any ways. So basically those are the 4 different damage types now available in Siege of Winterfell. Next up, let's go for skill damage setup. So over here you can see all the commanders that are doing skill damage. So in skill damage setups, we have 3 commanders that are able to increase the skill damage our deployment is doing: Marjorie, Jean, and Raymond. And the best out of 3 is Marge, by no doubt, because it's a big heal with a nice increase to skill damage. The second best one would be Jean. It's basically the same as Marjorie, but she doesn't heal at all. And Raymond, although it increases both skill damage and normal attack damage, I would not use that. So the actual damage dealing, skill damage dealing commanders are here, and the best one, if you want to do a skill damage setup, would be Cersei. So Cersei has area of effect damage 600 for up to 3 targets over 6 seconds, which makes Cersei max damage 10,800. And the rage cost is 800, so basically Cersei is doing 13.5 damage per rage with area of effect, which is really nice. The second best one would be Sunder Clegane. Sunder does 2500 skill damage with 800 rage cost, which is considerably less than what Cersei is doing, but Sunder has also enemy rage remove on his active ability, which is really nice for your own survivability. The third pick would be Julian, which is doing 1000 skill damage, but it's also up to 3 targets. The rage cost is very low, so he will be activating his skill a lot more often. So basically Julian is theoretically doing more damage than what Sunder would be doing. Then all the other picks over here, like Arya, Hector, Kravras, and Russell, they are all usable, and you can select to use them in your teams, but I think the top 3 would be Cersei, Sunder, and Julian. So how do you actually set up your skill damage setup? I would select Marjorie because it is healing and also increasing your commander's skill damage. And then if you have unlocked Cersei and Sandor, I would use them both. Even if they are at grey quality, the active ability does not change. So you are still going to do the massive skill damage these both commanders provide, but you won't be getting any stats. I mean, of course you get stats, but lower than you would get with higher quality. So I think skill damage setup is a really good option for one of your deployments. Okay, next up, bleed setup. So Daenerys probably was the best commander before this new update, and Daenerys still is, at least based on the skill, is really good. So basically what Daenerys does is she does 700 bleed damage up to 3 targets for 6 seconds, which totals up to 12,600 damage, which is higher than what Cersei is doing. My observation says that no commanders can remove or prevent bleed damage. And if this is the case, basically, then Daenerys will always be doing a lot of damage on the battlefield as long as she is using her active skill. And because there is no direct way to boost bleed damage, so the best way to scale Daenerys' damage would probably be to increase her stats in that deployment. So my suggested lineup for Daenerys would be Daenerys, Annie, because Annie is healing and also increases normal damage of your troops in that deployment. And the third pick would be just to increase your stats. So basically, depending on what troop type you are using, either Lats, Enzo, Drake or Melisandre, because those are granting the most stats out of all commanders. Okay, let's move on to support commanders. So basically this is a new idea that came to me when I was looking through the new commanders and their skills. So basically, let's say you're not the strongest player in your alliance, but you still want to be helpful. This might be an option for you, how you can set up your teams for Siege of Winterfell. So basically all the commanders you can see here, they have some kind of reduce or disable towards enemy. Let's take a look at Night King. Enemy cannot deal normal, counter or skill attacks for 5 seconds. When Night King uses his active, he is going to block enemy from being able to do damage towards you or your teammates. So that's kind of great. Tyrion Lannister is basically the same as Night King. Tyrion gets less stats overall, but it has the same effect that it will block enemy from using any types of skills for 6 seconds. Then the other options we have here, Varys reduces enemy normal attack damage. Theon, Layla and Jaime, they are all the same. They reduce enemy normal attack damage while increasing stats in your deployment. Soren would certainly be just a supporting commander. Low rage cost and reduce enemy rage by 250, so the enemy would not be able to use their active skills. Sheila is kind of a bad pick overall, but might work still in supporting setups with her skill damage reduce. And then we have Peter and Jon. So basically Peter is reducing all damage types by 70%. And if you compare to Night King blocks all damage and Peter reduces all damage. So that's the main difference there. And then we have Jon Snow that reduce skill and normal damage taken by your own troops, increase your own counterattack damage, and also increases infantry health. So these ones would be good picks for support lineups. Obviously, when running support setups, you would also want to use healing commanders to stay alive for longer, and especially Simon because that is area of effect heal and might help your teammates to stay alive for longer. Then let's carry on to normal and counter damage. So these damage types, I didn't find any specific setups to go with, because it's just the damage that happens whenever you are fighting. So what I did, I divided the commanders to those who give certain stats to your deployments, so you can see what commanders would fit the best for you. And in this section I would note that basically you want to have the commander gold color, because gold is going to give you the maximum amount of stats available. And the ranking system I used can be seen on the left here. So from bow commanders, the two best picks would be Theon and Sansa. Theon is giving you a lot of attack, reduce normal attack damage, decent stats, so that's a good pick. And Sansa is giving some bow stats, but the main part of Sansa is that she is increasing healing received by 1200%. In S tier we have Kravras, which is skill damage, and Melisandre, that is great bow attack and defense buff on her active skill. And then we have Obean, which is slightly worse statistics wise, but is also giving a higher buff on the bow stats. Sheila, Egbert and Robert, these I would avoid using because they are not great. Next up, spear commanders. In spear section we have more SS tier. Drake is giving a lot of stats. Hector is doing nice skill damage and also gives a lot of stats with his active. Dana, which is healer and grants immunity towards debuffs, but here I think once again you want to have her higher than Grey quality, because the stats kind of make her better by quite a lot. Then we have Annie, that boosts normal attack and also heals, and then we have Jaime to reduce enemy normal attack damage and increase spear attack. So those are the best picks from spear category. The second best ones would be Patello and Salma, because they heal and grant stats. And if you want just plain statistics buffs, then we have Arslan, Gorel and Miranda. Uma and Varys are kind of bad and I would not use those. Next up, infantry commanders. Here in the SS category we have Arya, which is decent skill damage, and then we have Lutz giving loads and loads of stats for your deployment. In the S category, once again Patello and Rhea because of their heal, and then we have Sinara, which is kind of between S and A tier. Sinara is reducing skill damage taken from your own deployments and increasing infantry attack by 900%. So basically usable in infantry lineups if you want to survive a bit longer. And then once again Andrea, Chris and Faze, they are just there to give your troops more stats. Lastly, cavalry commanders. In the SS tier we have only Enzo, giving a lot of stats for cavalry. Then in the S category, once again Rhea, Salma for their heal, and then we have Layla, reduce normal attack damage and increase cavalry attack by 900%. So those are the S tier ones. For A tier we have Lena, Mengo and Meryl giving you statistics. Russell, which could be used for his skill damage, but I might not still use Russell. And then Shan was buffing skill damage taken by the enemy. And then we have Rob, that is also just a stat buff. So basically now I went over all the different commander selections you can do, and hopefully this helped you with selecting your commanders and making yourself stronger for the upcoming season of Siege of Winterfell. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to comment on YouTube or send me a message on the Discord. See you in the next video.